So the Sixers went out and signed Paul George, and my first reaction was, okay, cool. That's actually a really good pickup because now you have a big three where you don't have to just rely on Maxey and Embiid to do pick and roll actions. If you run pin down screens with George and Embiid, he can get open, and Maxey will have more space out there, and you can't double team Joel Embiid anymore. That's going to be very hard to do, especially if you put Paul George in the corner or in a space where he can either shoot or create off the dribble. That's another thing that Philadelphia has now. Two guys in Maxey and George who can create off the dribble. Now, is it a risk? Of course it is, because Paul George is 34 years old. Obviously, father time is around the corner. And the championship window has now become smaller for the Sixers because we know about Embiid's health. We also know in the playoffs he doesn't always show up. So now you have a third option where if Embiid doesn't have it, Paul George can pick up the slack. Maxey obviously is not afraid at the moment. He was phenomenal, I think, in that Knicks series, especially that Game 5 where he hit some fantastic shots. But there are some risks to this. Now, I can't act like I wouldn't do this if I was the Celtics because they picked up Porzingis, who has health concerns. He's supposed to miss the start of the season next year, and that already is concerning to me, especially if you're going to sign this guy long term. I'm not sure Boston should do that, by the way, but they brought in Porzingis last year. They brought in Jrue Holiday last year. And those are two guys who had some major question marks, especially if you watch the Bucks and Heat series where Jimmy Butler absolutely destroyed Jrue Holiday last year. But they brought him in. He showed up when they needed him. Porzingis, he was healthy, and then he wasn't in the playoffs for a lot of it. So in order for Boston, in my opinion, to repeat, they're going to need Porzingis a lot longer. Now, I say all that because Paul George is a risk. He logged 2,000 minutes with the Clippers for the first time during his tenure, and that happened last year. So we'll see if he can stay healthy. Now, his true shooting percentage in the clutch is at 71. It's like 71.6, 71.6%, which I think is really good. I can't lie, that's actually phenomenal. He can guard multiple positions, so you can't just, run screen actions and act like he can't pick up that guy. So I think having that versatility is very important. Also, another scoring threat out there for the Sixers. Now, what are my concerns with this? Well, I already mentioned it, Joel Embiid. We've seen him in the playoffs. I don't want to hear about the injury excuses because I feel like Joel Embiid gets protected so much. We saw him in 2021. Don't give me the Ben Simmons excuses because at that time, he was an elite defender. We forget what happened in Game 5. They were up 28 points against the Atlanta Hawks. You go out and blow that game. You've got Game 7 you're building. Trae Young is shooting up bricks. You lose that series. I thought that year Philadelphia should have been in the NBA Finals. You saw what was going on in the Nets. James Harden had a hamstring injury. Kyrie was out for the rest of the playoffs. You had the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard. He was out. So I'm thinking the door is wide open for Philly, and they just couldn't get it done. So then you flash forward to 2023. You had Game 6 in your building with Boston there. Tatum was horrendous. I mean, this guy was generational bad until the last 5 minutes of the game where he finally showed up, and Embiid didn't score the last 6 minutes of that game. And Tatum made the shots, and you saw Game 7, Tatum went out for 51, and that was it for the Sixers. Then you go to this year. Julius Randle is not playing for the Knicks. Come on, Embiid. Come on, Maxey. Like, Embiid should be the best player in that series, and Brunson outperformed him. I think for me, I'm tired of the excuses, and now you have Paul George. I don't want to hear anything about him anymore. He needs to get the job done, but will he? I don't know. I've got my doubts about Joel Embiid. Then you talk about, their depth. They're going to likely lose Milton and lose Batum. So they need guys to rest Embiid and Paul George. So if you don't have depth on this team, I don't know what's going to happen. They did extend Kelly Oubre, which I think is important. But, Kyle Lowry, is he going to come back? He's a question mark. So there's a lot of things with this team, depth-wise, might hurt them. So if they're top-heavy, they might not make it through the season, and then Embiid gets hurt again, or something happens, or maybe Paul George gets hurt. These are definitely concerns. Do I think talent-wise they're really good? Yes. But would I pick them over Boston? No. Would I pick them over the Knicks? No. Would I pick them over the Magic, the Pacers? Probably not. I think Orlando and Philly could fight it out because I think Orlando getting Caldwell Pope was a fantastic move, especially for that young roster. And I think Indiana, with their spaced out offense and how Halliburton controls that offense, is just really hard to deal with. And Siakam is back. They got another year. They just made the Eastern Conference Finals. I know they benefited from a lot of injuries, but they still got there. That's going to pay dividends. And they played Boston really tough. And the only game that was really a blowout was Game 2. So with all that being said, great pickup for the Sixers. I'm not going to front and act like it wasn't a great move. They had to do something to stay relevant in the East, but the window is now. There is so much pressure on the Sixers now. Like, if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, that is a disaster. And if Embiid is playing, and I don't want to hear anything about, oh, he's not really healthy, or this guy gets protected so much. We got to stop doing this, because we criticize Giannis, we criticize Tatum, we criticize LeBron, we criticize Curry when they fail, but Embiid gets protected. No, that can't happen no more. The man's 30 years old and still hasn't made a conference finals. He's had James Harden. He's had Ben Simmons. He had a great opportunity, I think, to make the conference finals last year because the Knicks didn't have their second best option, loses in the first round in 6 games. So I just don't want to hear it. You've got your Paul George, get the job done. We criticized Tatum and Brown. They got their championship. So what are the Sixers going to do? Is the process really something that you should rely on, or is it just fraudulent? Because right now it's looking that way. But again, I want to give them an opportunity. I want to see if they can really show us that, things are going to be different. The last thing I want to touch on is, their schemes and who's going to get the ball in the fourth quarter, because Maxey is their takeover guy. So it's very important for Embiid to read those moments so Maxey and Paul George can take over games. They both have the potential to do that. So if Embiid is hobbling or if he just doesn't have the energy, you got to let those guys carry you. And that's okay. I'm not going to be mad about that. But again, they've got to recognize that. So I think this could be more of like a 2-year process, or maybe the Sixers win it, not this year, but next year. I don't know. It's just hard for me to see it happening because we saw them get James Harden. We saw how that played out. And, Nick Nurse is an upgrade for coach, so I don't want to dismiss him. He was phenomenal for them. I thought the Sixers were really good this season. Embiid would have won MVP if he was healthy. But it's always about the playoffs for me. Embiid in the regular season is fantastic, but in the playoffs, it's questionable. Now, Paul George is healthy, and he is playing at a high level. The Sixers are going to be tough to beat. There's no doubt about that. But I say that with a little asterisk. They need to add some bench pieces, quality players who can fit around these 3 guys. If they can find that, they got a shot. I still like those other teams better. That's just my opinion. Obviously, that can change based on how they, start the season, whether things go well for them. We'll see how it plays out. But again, I still think it makes them a contender, but I don't know how much better they are than the teams I mentioned. We'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, kudos to the Sixers for doing something. They had to strike on something really good this offseason with all that cap space. So shout out to them. Got your big 3. Now just go out and hoop and see what you can do. Get to the conference finals, maybe the NBA finals, and now you're changing narratives. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Paul George joining the Sixers. Do you like the move? Do you not like the move? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.